So when we go to the fourth section, it says to put the patient into pressure control. So again, we touch the mode at the top, touch pressure control. Oops, I meant to hit pressure control. I obviously hit volume control. Here we've hit pressure control and all of our settings come up. And we can see the first one we're supposed to set is the pressure above peak to 16. I've done that. Touch our rate to get to 16, PEEP of 6, FiO2 of 21, an I time to achieve a ratio of 1 to 3, and you can see in the upper corner here, we can either go to 0.95 or 0.9 to achieve this. I'm going to go to 0.95 because more often patients are comfortable 1 to 1.34 seconds. So here at 0.95, we're getting closer to that. I'm going to leave our inspiratory rise time, which is how fast we're going to get to our peak pressure, to 0.15 of a second. And I'll leave our flow trigger at the default until we actually set the patient up with this, okay? So, so we are now ready to go. I'm going to hit accept, and by the way, I've got my lung simulator set to normal conditions as specified. So I'm going to hit accept and start ventilating the patient. Okay. And now we monitor. Now, notice, even though we have fairly low settings, see my tidal volume is around 778, 780. So that's a very large tidal volume. So we would need to have a very big person to justify this tidal volume. Someone like 6'6" or something like that, to have this set appropriately. But this is what's requested in the lab, so we will say that that is an appropriate tidal volume for our patient, and then look to the next thing on the lab. So you will note that was the initial setup. It says do a check, so we're going to chart all of our numbers. Remember, we're in pressure ventilation, so we expect pressure to stay fairly constant. Where we expect our changes, they're in volume, minute ventilation, and inhaled and exhaled tidal volume. Well, notice the next request is to decrease compliance to 20. So I am going to come over to our lung simulator, and I know it's just off to the side, but we've shown you how to do this, and reduce our compliance to 20. I've got my hands full, so it's taking me a moment here. There we go. Okay, now we're in pressure ventilation, so what change do you expect to see? Well, notice our peak pressure has essentially stayed the same. We have 6 of peak and 16 of pressure above peak, which should give us a PIP of 22. So you can see our PIP is still 22, so no effect there. Now notice with reduced compliance, what suddenly happened to our respiratory rate. It's gone way up because we can see there's auto-triggering there. So what we need to do to solve this, remember we always troubleshoot the issues. So we're going to try reducing flow trigger, just like we showed you on an earlier video. There we go. Let's try it at 2. Remember, we want it as sensitive as possible without auto-triggering. So at 3 it was auto-triggering, at 2 it's not, so we're going to stay at a flow trigger of 2. Oh, there was another auto-trigger. So let's try it down to 1. And see how we do. Notice our rate's going to come down now to 16 as long as we have no more breaths that the ventilator thinks the patient wants to trigger, but they really don't. Okay. So let's look now at our volume. Notice what's happened. Our pressure stayed the same, but by halving our compliance, right? We went from 40 mils per centimeter water pressure to 20 mils per centimeter water pressure. And then, so we expect to roughly half our tidal volume, and you can see that's what's happened. We went from just under 400, it was 780, to 390, which is half of that volume. So very predictable outcomes. That's what we expect to see when we decrease compliance.